Make sure it's out. Before we get to this, it's still in here.
Probably was born and out.
It might be.
You see.
Might get turned inside out. Okay. We can call the one to the roadway getting here. Ready? Yes, sir. Ready to go. Well, I didn't.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the Wednesday, March 11th Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee meeting here at KIPTA. Jim Sullivan, Chair, presiding. Andy, will you bridge the roll?
I certainly will. Thank you all for being here today. Bullitt County,
Keith Griffey here.
City of Charlestown, City of Jeffersontown.
Here.
Okay. Mount Washington, New Albany.
We're here.
I think I saw Larry.
Yeah, Larry's on there.
Hi, Larry. I see you, or I see your name. City of Shepherdsville. How about St. Matthews? How about Clark County?
They were hearing us or not.
Keith, can you still hear us?
Yes, sir.
But we can't hear him.
Now we can't hear you.
me?
We're having owl issues all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If you can keep hearing, I'll keep going. And we'll be looking for folks. Floyd County. Hi, Nick. I got you. Is there anybody from IDEM on the line? How about from NDOT Seymour?
Julie's here.
Hi, Julie. I see you. Can't hear you yet. We'll be able to hear you in a minute. I'm glad you can hear us. Let's see. Do we have any other folks from NDOT on the line? I do not believe so. Kentucky DAQ. Hi, Emma. Can't hear you, but we see you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't unmute myself, but yes, we're here.
She might have been saying something about somebody else who's on here. Is anybody else going to join us?
No, Claire cannot make it today. It's just me.
Can't read lips. If somebody's going to join us, please type it in the chat. But if not, we're all good. Greg's working on the owl as we speak, so we'll be ready to go here in a minute. KYTC Central Office. Thank you, Cedra. KYTC District 5. Thank you, Tom. Is there anybody else on from D5? I'm not seeing any at the moment. Kip is here. Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
Yeah.
Louisville Metro Economic Development.
It's not picking it up.
Hi, Mike. See you. Metro Planning and Design. Metro Public Works. Louisville Regional Airport Authority.
Here, Daryl.
Hello, Daryl. Louisville Riverport Authority. Oldham County.
Jim Sullivan here.
Thank you, Jim. Oldham County Planning Commission. Both times two. What a privilege. Port of Indiana, Jeffersonville. TARC Accessibility Advisory Council. Town of Clarksville. I see Brad. Brad, if you can hear us, I see your name. Can't see
I can
you.
hear you all well.
Your box turned yellow. I think everybody else can hear Brad except us in the room. And last but not least, TARC.
Hi, Andy. You've got me today.
I can see your lips moving. Good afternoon, Jeffrey. We've got Jose Cabero from there.
Is that me or you? I'm not sure. It's making a lot of echo noise.
I knew that was gonna do that.
All right. We echoed. Check 1 2 1 2. Okay, we have Jose Cabero from City of Shepherdsville. We have D Lynch from Metro APCD. Thank you all for joining us. I see Tanya Higdon from Federal Highways Kentucky. Hello, Tanya. Good to see you.
Oh, too.
There we
We can
go.
hear you. All right, great. All right, you are our test case too, so on the sound. So
Okay.
thank you
Happy
all
to
for
help.
being here. Apologies for the audio video issues. Hopefully that's the last one we'll have today. And we're good to go. Okay, overview.
Great, thank you, Andy. So everyone should have received the February TTCC minutes with the invitation online. Do you have any questions or a motion to approve? So moved. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimously passed. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So the third item on our agenda, Andy, you have a review of the TPC meeting activities.
Yes, our TPC met on Thursday, February 26th, just a couple weeks ago. February was a short month, so it's a quick turnaround this time. That meeting was a lot like our TTCC meeting was in February. A lot of times they're awful, a lot alike, and this one was very much alike. Flannery gave us a presentation just like she gave this group in mid-February about the air quality status. We talked about the safety performance measures. Darian presented on the highway plan. One small difference, I suppose, we talked a little bit about something that we will talk about today, and so I won't steal Chris's thunder today, but something called the Basics Act. That's a what they call a marker bill in Congress that's being floated, and it has a lot of interesting things for MPOs. But I'll let Chris talk a little bit about that later in this meeting. But like I said, very similar agenda to last month.
Thank you.
Last month's TTCC.
Right. Greg, do we have any public comment?
We did. We received one just a little bit ago. This is in response to the Second Street Bridge project. That's gotten a little bit of media attention the last couple of days. This says, I've heard of the plan to convert the Second Street Bridge from 4 lanes to 3 lanes, 2 north and 1 south. I was waiting to hear about public meetings to comment, but never saw any notice of them, so I'm messaging now. Drive this bridge every day to work from Jeffersonville into Louisville, and most of the folks in our neighborhood do the same. I agree there needs to be some adjustments for safety. People drive very fast, and it is a bit scary to cross at times. What I notice is that dangerous traffic is usually going from Louisville into Indiana as folks drive insanely fast to avoid driving side by side on the bridge with the tight lanes. I do not have the full education of a traffic engineer, so I am likely misunderstanding something. But I would like to think the more appropriate proposal would be to limit the traffic going north to 1 way and keep the southbound 2 lanes as that traffic that is going slower coming off an exit/local road onto a bridge and is restricted by a stoplight at the end seems to be safer, easier to manage than the traffic that is speeding through 1 stoplight and attempting to get up to 55 miles an hour speeds to merge on the I-65. I recognize that the intersection at 2nd Street and Main Street poses a weird transition onto the bridge if it were to be 2 lanes north. However, knowing that Main Street will transition from 1 way to 2 way would present an excellent opportunity to study this intersection and surely come up with a decent proposal. Many neighbors in Jeffersonville are very angry and frustrated about the situation as they feel very left out of the conversations that are happening surrounding this infrastructure that they use daily and help them to decide to move where they did. Because the bridge is maintained by Kentucky, we have heard that Kentucky will be doing whatever they want without much input, consultation from Indiana, and honestly, it does feel that way very currently. I realize my comments here will likely not impact the project proposal or outcome, but it would be very much appreciated by the Indiana community to have at least an information meeting to explain why this is the best proposal, even if public feedback is not being considered. I did respond back to her, gave her Morgan's contact, because obviously you all are the KYTC is the project sponsor on that. So she said she is going to be sending those comments to you, but I didn't want to read those out today, so everybody had them.
Thank you.
Just so in case that folks don't remember, that was a project that was a part of the most recent amendment that we did. That would have been in Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in January when it would have been across the TTC and TTCC and the TPC's desk, if you will. So it's part of that amendment, and we got a couple comments at that time, but very few. In fact, we expected more. Candidly, I think we expected more at the time. So They're coming out.
And, you know, it's like they're going through other channels, not just your public comment or our public.
Yeah,
comment.
that's part of the story here.
Yeah.
Of course, it is in the news. I think, I saw it on WDRB. I think Greg said he saw it on another channel yesterday or on some, another website.
Sure.
Is it still open for comment or is this just in the news, but it's past the point of public
I
feedback?
would say that the cabinet released, did a press release yesterday, and the press release said that's just one option and that we're gonna move a little slower and, explore some other options.
Okay,
I don't know exactly if that means additional or public comment, but, the cabinet will be definitely taking a slower approach to that.
sure.
And I think you all know this, but if you didn't, I wanna say it again, we're always open for public comment. And so if in conversations y'all have through your course of work about transportation and it's just a little bit off of why you asking me type of question, encourage them to public comment to the record here. At a minimum, it'll get to Greg and it'll get to the right spot or to the TTCC and TPC. Again, there's not necessarily guarantees that the exact outcome that the person is asking for is always gonna happen. Of course, there's no guarantees of things like that, but we never shut down for public comment here.
Okay.
We're not afraid.
Great.
And that was a very thoughtful and thorough
Mhm.
comment, so.
Yes.
It should be received well.
Yeah, this person's paying good attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it has some good thoughts. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Floyd County Paoli Pike Sidewalk Master Plan presentation. Andy?
Yeah, so, one of the, we call them the PL studies, the studies that, that we farm out a little bit of our PL dollars, to local communities each year. More on that later on the next go around of that. One of the examples, we saw last month, and we'll see another example today, from one out in Floyd County. Nick Creevy, would you like to, introduce the consultant team, or would you like me to do so? I'm happy to do so if you'd like.
Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Okay. Yeah, we have Rob Huckabee with Clark Deeds and Bronte Mural here from Taylor Seifker Williams. They were our consultants for this project. We thank TIPTA for providing the funding to support it. This was something that we identified as a need. We have few pedestrian traffic issues in the county, but this is one area where we do. We actually had a fatality a few years back in this area. So we wanted to get a better idea of what we could do to kind of link up the patchwork of sidewalks or shoulders that people are using. And I think they did a pretty good job. I'll let them present their findings. And I probably will jump off before they're done. I apologize for that, but without further ado, let them go ahead.
All right, Rob.
All right, thank you all very much. Kind of take a full 90 minutes and we have a lot of. No, appreciate that. Rob Huckabee with Clark Deeds and Bronte Merle with Taylor Seifker Williams. And you have a click right.
Yes, sir. Shouldn't.
Okay, there we go. Yep. Just a brief overview of the agenda, and I will try to keep it to 15 minutes. Obviously, jump in, ask questions if there are any along the way. Just want to give an overview background of the project and the process. We had a very robust online survey, public engagement effort, so that was fantastic. But then also, talking about some of the realities of the project constraints, and then the opportunities we were trying to capitalize on. And then a brief overview of the final design and our proposed approach for implementation and phasing of the project. Little background on the project here. The corridor that you see from the area map, this is kind of central to Floyd County, but obviously just west of the New Albany area and the Louisville metro area. This kind of transitions from that more developed urban area towards the western end of the corridor. It's more of that rural, more isolated area. So with that said, here's a little bit of an overview of our process. Overall, kicked this project off in fall 2024. Again, had a very robust online survey. Bronte will go over a lot of those highlights and the responses we got. public meeting number one, just to get that involvement. And that was on site in the immediate vicinity of the corridor. And then working on developing conceptual alternatives, followed by meeting number two about a year ago now. And then we took those final comments, rolled those into our final development plan, and then presented those findings to Floyd County Commissioners in May of last year for acceptance. So that's brief overview. I'm going to turn it over to Bronte to go over some of the online survey and public engagement.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. So like Rob said, I'm just gonna talk through some of the survey highlights. I really just want to focus on some of the things that really informed a lot of our thinking on the project. So in total, we had 347 responses, so pretty good turnout for an area this small. What we did hear from is just a real mix of different people. So we heard a lot from people who live right on the corridor or the neighborhood surrounding it. But we also heard, I mean, over half the people were from areas not along the corridor, but still within Floyd County itself. So we heard from a lot of people. I would say, okay, it's working toward me this. Oh, and then I went one forward too much. We're gonna keep going back. Okay. One of the first things we really asked people was, do you even want to see sidewalks along Paoli Pike? But with that, we had a real split here. If you look down at the bottom of the question totals, it's actually a 50-50 split on whether people wanted to see sidewalks. But by asking, where people live, we were able to see that more people who lived closer to the corridor wanted to see the sidewalks. And when we asked people actually about, whether or not they're already using it, about 20% of survey respondents said that they already walk, run, or bike along Paoli Pike. 67% of those people, so just like 46 people total, who currently use that are people who are living along the corridor. So while some people really don't want to see sidewalks added, they view this as a high traffic corridor, and it is. We've already got people using these facilities, right? And even when we went through like Google Street View, we could see people walking in the shoulder because we don't have these connected sidewalk routes. So we know that there's a need. But we also know that people have a lot of hesitations and they're nervous about having more pedestrians around when they're driving. With that, we started to also ask people, where do you want to really walk to or ride to using sidewalks or trails? And so we started to kind of cluster these together along the corridor. All the way on the far left of the screen is Mount St. Francis, and so that's a major recreational community destination. But there's not a lot between that and our real cluster of activity as well. And so those destinations you see where they're all clustered together, that's where we have a lot of those shops. We have car mechanics, we have retail, we have dining, some Starbucks kind of things going on there. So that's where people really want to be able to go. But with that, there's a lot of thinking, as Rob will talk about, there's a lot of topography here, and that's going to shape a lot of those decisions as far as where sidewalks can really go. One of the other questions we asked people is what type of sidewalk widths they would like to see, which ones they feel comfortable with. It's not shocking, they chose the wider sidewalks. I think everyone will, but again, we're gonna deal with some of those topographical constraints, and really, what kind of options do we have to create wider sidewalks? So at a bare minimum, 6 foot was really our ideal, but there are some places where we just can't achieve that. And then the last question I want to focus on was about spacing between the sidewalk and the street. What kind of barrier can we provide for people? Again, you can see people preferred a greater barrier between them and the street. They wanted to see that, up to 6 foot distance, 4 foot or 6 foot. And we even got more comments about wanting to have more of a physical barrier. So is there kind of guardrail? Can we do some plantings? Can there be a ditch? A lot of those comments because people are very concerned about those high speeds on Paoli Pike. Those are the highlights I have for the online survey, but I know they'll come up again and we'll walk through the rest of it.
Thank you much. All right, just kind of an overview of analysis and some of the conceptual designs that we talked about during this process. Again, a little background, apologies that some of this is cut off a little bit by the screen, but average daily traffic for this roadway, is around 15,000 vehicles. Oh, it's fine. There's nothing too critical on it. About 15,000 vehicles towards the eastern end of it, as well as, a little bit less, diminished to about 8,500 towards the western end of the corridor. And so we have, again, this transition from very, urban to rural. We also have, you know, from the urban areas, there's a lot of folks who are probably offloading from the interstate. So they're used to traveling at this high rate of speed. And this corridor is really intended to be 30 miles an hour in the western or eastern end and about 40 miles an hour towards the western end. But again, there's a lot of documentation, a lot of feedback we got from the public survey that people are just traveling too fast. So we're always trying, we were keeping that foremost in mind when we're designing for potential improvements. We also have this substantial elevation gain. So there's about 400 feet of elevation change really from the eastern end of the corridor to the west over a fairly, just a little over 2 mile segment. So there's a lot of climb that takes place. So it is very much a transitional corridor from multiple standpoints. Again, Bronte touched on this, the mixed land use that exists in the area, that's due to development that's happened over the past 30 plus years. We do have some smaller residential subdivisions, some large ones, and even much larger with Woods Lafayette. But we also have some infill pockets of commercial type establishment, services industry, and those developments have all happened really close to the roadway corridor, and that's because of that topography. There was no large flat areas to build, so we have situations where there's parking for a business that's right along the side of the road essentially, so there's not a lot of opportunity to squeeze an additional sidewalk in there without taking away from some of that business's services. Again, big picture, this is Floyd's knobs, so we know we're dealing with a lot of terrain, some visibility challenge that's associated with horizontal and vertical road alignment, as well as a lot of high drainage runoff potential. And apologies, I missed it. There's a summary of the crash data that again KIF provided from 2018 to 2022, the most recent data we had available. And this is pretty evenly distributed kind of throughout the corridor. Yes, there are hot spots, but we were seeing a lot of consistent accidents throughout the corridor. So going back to the terrain situation, again, site proximity to the road, a lot of, I don't want to say encroachments, they're very close proximity, no setbacks. We also have drop offs where some of them are drainage ditches, some of them is just, the edge of the road on the south side in particular. And again, the stormwater challenges that are associated with those steep terrains. Pretty high traffic volumes relative to the size of the road. And then I mentioned the crashes again throughout the corridor, but speeding challenges are just something that we're really trying to figure out how we get pedestrians from the subdivisions north and south side, connect them to a central corridor. I mentioned this picture is a partial illustration of it. I realize it's a little small, but we have many situations where there's been a relatively recent development. Floyd County has required those developments to have sidewalks, but oftentimes the adjoining properties don't have those. So it's a sidewalk to nowhere.
That's the goofiest looking sidewalk I think I've ever seen.
And that is another one, that's a unique auto service station where it's very difficult to, and Nick, if he could probably give 15-minute presentation on that alone, but there was a lot of challenges associated with not hindering the business operations. And so we had that one called out specifically for additional visibility and markings on the pavement. Just to raise some awareness. So again, inconsistent sidewalks, some of it is width, some of it is just they don't exist. So it's a path to nowhere. We wanna address those situations. So the goal of this opportunities, we feel like there's a lot of opportunity to create those connections to where we're connecting those broken sidewalk segments. And then, provide some infill where those are. Reducing vehicle travel lane width, taking from 12 feet down to 11. That may seem counterintuitive to some folks, especially the public, but the reality is that if a driver feels there's less real estate to fudge the line, maybe they'll honor that area between the yellow and white a little more, honestly. So encouraging drivers to be more responsive with their speed, by reducing that travel lane width. So that is what we look at, that can coincide with resurfacing. So it's a, low cost, alternative to, again, encouraging, vehicles to travel a little, slower rate of speed. So smart pedestrian crossings. We want to allow pedestrians to be able to connect, to cross the road, but we don't really have a corridor where we can flank both sides with sidewalks or a mixed use path. So we've got to find opportunities in those subdivisions to the south to be able to connect to the corridor, the pedestrian corridor to the north. So a lot of this, also some other, cost-effective alternatives is signage. Increased signage certainly, sometimes can, have a lot of bang for the buck, but we also have to be aware we don't want to overwhelm drivers with too much information. So, and then we also looked at phasing from implementation. We know that Boyd County is probably not going to get some windfall where they can build this all at once. So we have to, have strategies for phasing. So I will start at kind of the top, the dream that everybody wants to have, that separated mixed use path and a big buffer, was just not feasible in this instance. One, frankly, yes, some of the feedback from the public, about a third, was like, we want to see that separation mixed use path. But there was also 2/3 that just said, yeah, a little bit narrower is fine, but we just don't have the real estate to work with without relocating businesses, without a tremendous amount of investments. There's not a lot of bang for the buck if we wanted to really use that mixed use path. So, just want to address that head on because it just wasn't in the cards for this particular situation. I mentioned the lane narrowing, and so again, fairly cost-effective measure to encourage traffic to be a little, vehicles to be a little slower, signage and awareness. We do propose a couple of new hawk crossings, at targeted areas. We feel like they're viable and feasible, but again, it's really going to be determined based on, that detailed design, whether those areas are workable. But we have to get, there's one section that has, about 50 residents on the south side. We want to provide that connectivity. The other thing I will mention in terms of the phasing is we really focused on the denser areas, kind of east of Scottsville Road, the eastern segment, about 1.1 miles, where the majority of that first implementation of connectivity should really be focused. Obviously, a new development can drive or influence a lot of these on either side of the road, or either side of that, Scottsville Road kind of separator. But, we really feel like the most bang for the buck, that's where the most residents are, the most businesses, and frankly, that's where the members of the public gave the most positive interest for it. So, and again, I mentioned the ancillary improvements are going to be necessary in order to build establish this, sidewalk connectivity. There's going to be some retaining wall modifications, obviously some utility coordination. We've got stormwater challenges to deal with just because of the terrain. But there are certainly, of course, some supporting infrastructure that's going to allow these sidewalks to be possible. I realize this is small, but I at least wanted to give a feel of the corridor in a little bit more detail. And again, this is really starting from the eastern segment, Buffalo Trails, kind of to the far east side. And really we have sidewalks with separation because we had a little bit more space. So we were trying to maximize that separation from the edge of the travel lane. Along the south side, we have a subdivision to the north that has about 70 homes. And so providing some connectivity, along the north side, crossing Lafayette Parkway, which is Woods Lafayette, so larger subdivision. And then really the majority of the pedestrian sidewalk is on the north side. Just moving forward to the next slide. Along the corridor, again, we mostly had some separation, 2-3 feet. That provides just a little bit of safety, especially for vehicles that are negotiating, turns and whatnot. But it just provides a little bit more of a buffer and a little bit more comfort for users on the sidewalk. We have some improvements for crosswalk patching at some of the businesses and some of the developments. But again, this project, in order to be realized, is going to have we'll maximize what we can in the right way, but there will be some private property or coordination. Just a little farther, I hate to say more of the same, but this is where actually the sidewalk starts to adjoin the vehicle travel lanes, just because we're just confined by topography more than anything. We also are looking at, non-mountable curbs, something like that, just to reduce, if a vehicle, loses control, it provides just a little bit more, protection for residents. And then this is kind of that central area where, what I'd almost call a separator for the project. And so substantial intersection improvements, where we have a stoplight condition, so improvements there as well as with some of the businesses, kind of minimizing the access to the property for, for vehicles pulling in, so it's not just a big, wide open concrete spans where pedestrians are trying to cross to get to the business. I promise I'm wrapping it up. I don't think I've hit my 9 minutes yet, but implementation, this is really what we see again is focusing the majority of the improvements for the time being on the eastern portions where there's higher density, higher feedback. We did do, of course, order of magnitude cost associated with this, the proposed improvements. So, we're talking about 4.9 million, approximate estimates just for planning level to say, here's what it's going to take to establish better connectivity, and, maximize the safety for users along the corridor. Going west, just a little bit longer segment in phase 2. This is largely, there's hardly any sidewalks in this section, but, so it's all new infrastructure. We do have some areas where we've got a lot of fall off. And so there are going to be some point improvements, but generally speaking, there's a little bit more wider corridor because there's less in the way of building and development encroachments. But, so there's a little more opportunity for separation in phase 2. And this also coincides with the section of road that's 40 miles an hour. So it's a little faster traffic anticipated section. So with that, I think I was probably a little longer than 15 minutes, but glad to open up for any questions, comments, suggestions.
Bronte, welcome back, and you were presenting the Clarksville master plan last time, so you seem busy with this. Yeah. Just look at my first thought is that it's interesting. The layout you had seems to create more of an urban setting. And if you could immediately throw all kinds of pedestrians on that, maybe that becomes a traffic calming measure. But we're always faced with the improvements to the road, raising speeds. So just really interested to see how this actually pans out.
Yeah, and in Floyd County, admittedly, I mean, these types of infrastructure improvements, I think they were taken back a little bit by the costs associated with them, but the goal was, again, we put in a mixed use path, we're talking lots of acquisitions, relocations, and $20 million of effort. And that would be just kind of infeasible to go that route. And so the idea was, hey, can some of these improvements coincide with, paving, for example, the restriping, the narrowing, as well as, it was recognized, we didn't do a detailed design on everything, but there are some infrastructure challenges out there right now. Stormwater, there's some areas where we know it's streaming off the hill on the north side and it's flowing over the road. So the idea of, okay, yes, we've captured some of those improvements here, but they have, there's a need otherwise to come support this. So it was a great project. Again, I enjoyed working with Floyd County, very much appreciate KIPTA in terms of sponsoring this. It was challenging because everybody wants that big wide corridor to send cyclists and other users, but this was one of those ones where we had to pull back just a little bit, exercise some discipline in order to come up with something that was buildable and workable.
Yeah, this corridor definitely has a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
coming from State Street in the city and then up the hill and then.
Visualizing the rocks, walls on the
Yeah,
side.
if you're going east or south, you got vistas of the skyline. So if you've never driven on that road, go out to the Starbucks, Bronte was talking about, go for a Sunday drive out there. Yeah, you'll enjoy yourself, or stop in, go that way on the way home, Hubers or wherever you're going. Yeah, it's definitely, it reminds me of so many corridors around the region that have some growing pains or whatever you want to say, that it's all grown up now and it needs some love.
Can you remind me the difference between a Hawk and a RRFB?
I am not. I'm probably not the best person to do that. I had to use some of our traffic engineers, kind of as a specialist. I had some background with that particular corridor, but full disclosure, I'm not a full blown.
I'll have to look it up sometime. I just don't remember where the Hawk is.
The hawk is more like a traffic signal, and when you push the button, it turns a full on red light for the street rather than a flashing amber that
Okay.
just draws attention to the crossers.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you again.
Thanks, guys.
All right, moving on. Chris, you got the socioeconomic forecast for the MTP
Not alone.
Just go for it.
and area, right? That's right, great.
Hello, everybody. We're gonna be talking about the MTP update that we're gonna be working on, specifically the socioeconomic forecasting that we're gonna be doing. So I'm Darian Cook, this is Chris Nicholas. And yeah, so we will. All right, I will start. So in brief, this is our first presentation this time on the socioeconomic forecasting. And how does that fit into long-range planning? It's going to assist in our understanding of future transportation needs and also help us identify improvements necessary to meet those needs. In addition, it's going to provide the critical inputs for the traffic demand model that we'll go over a few key concepts. For this presentation, this is going to be kind of like a high level like overview, but we're going to be talking about this in more depth over the next few months for sure. And if anyone wants has any questions about some of these concepts or wants to get into the weeds further, we can do that via email or at a later time in our smaller meetings. All right, so first of all, I've got census geography, the TAZs. TAZs are geographic units used to analyze traffic modeling demands, and also they're similar to census block groups, which most of you are probably familiar with. Then we also have census tracts. Block groups fit inside of the tracts. Block groups are geographic units on block groups and tracts are geographic units based on population and housing units. Then we're gonna talk about population. Population for our purposes means all people living in a specific geographic unit. Housing units can be a house, apartment, trailer, one or more of a collection of rooms are that are considered separate living quarters, and separate living quarters generally indicates that there's a unique entrance specific to the unit. Housing units can be occupied or vacant. For that reason, we're mostly going to talk about households. Households mostly are what we're going to be looking at. They include the people who occupy the housing units. So housing units are not going to, or households are not going to include group quarters population. And that's an important consideration because in the overall population that the census reports, group quarters would be counted in there. Group quarters, for just a refresher, is the population of that live in the group quarters and not in the housing units. There's two types of group quarters. There's institutional and non-institutional. So for our purposes, we've excluded the group quarter population because a lot of this has to do with transportation and the travel demand model. Employment can be a weird one to look at statistics and data. So in our case, we are getting our employment data from Data Axle. And with this data, employment includes all jobs. So that is not just full-time jobs, it's full-time, part-time, seasonal, everybody. Sometimes, like for census data, it might be 16 and over. This just straight up all jobs. And
Chris, real quick, just so
yes.
everybody knows, one of the tricky parts about employment is what we desire, what the model craves is place of work employment. Where does the person, where are the jobs at? Not necessarily where do people live that work those jobs. So it's a little bit harder actually to get the place of work employment than it is the other data from the census.
Thanks, Andy. Another important thing to describe, we have the North American Industry Classification System, the NACS system. That is a 6-digit system classifying businesses by industry. And so for our purposes, we're gonna be having 3 codes or 3 categories: retail, service, and basic. I'm not gonna go into the weeds of what that means right now, but we probably will when we have our smaller meetings. And so these are used again for socioeconomic forecasting because categories, these 3 categories are used to generate the trips for the traffic demand model. Now I'll pass it to Darian now.
All right, so I'm gonna be talking about some more key concepts. So the base year is the starting point or anchor for forecasting, representing the most recent, reliable, and comprehensive data set available to model future trends. Our base year is 2025. Because the most recent data available is the American Community Survey 5-year estimates from 2018 to 2024, and the most accurate data available is from the 2020 decennial census. To get a reasonable estimate for our base year, we've used a combination of both data sources. And the last time KIPTA staff did this process, the base year was 2019. Our MTP horizon year is the target year of a specified planning or forecasting period, often used in transportation modeling to mark when goals are expected to be met. It defines the endpoint for analyzing data or achieving long-term objectives. Our MTP horizon year is 2050. Forecasting. So forecasting is a method of predicting future conditions by analyzing patterns and uncovering trends in previous and current data. We will use data analysis tools to create estimates for population, households, and employment for the block groups in the KIPTA region to the horizon year of 2050. And control total is an independent, trusted, and updated estimate of the total number of people in a specific area used to weigh survey data. These totals are used to calibrate survey results to match known population benchmarks, correcting coverage errors in survey sampling. All right, and we're going to talk about some core steps and resources. So for the base year data determination, as I mentioned, we are using 2018 to 2024 American Community Survey data and the 2020 decennial census data to calculate our base year of 2025. The decennial census is considered superior for determining the official absolute population count and apportionment because it aims to survey every household in the US every 10 years, offering maximum accuracy. Unlike the ACS, which is sample-based survey with margins of error, the census provides the definitive, complete count of people and housing units. And fitting the data into TAZs, we are currently in the process of using Data Axle to convert employment data to TAZs. And we are also using a GIS exercise to convert population and household data that is on the census, block group, and tract level to TAZs for our travel demand modeling, which will be used to forecast future traffic conditions, infrastructure needs, and traveler behavior. And control totals, the control totals that we have available for population, households, and employment data in this region include Woods and Pool, the Kentucky State Data Center, and the Indiana Business Research Center. These control totals will help to correct coverage errors in survey samples, ensuring the final weighted estimates align with the best available population figures. Horizon year estimates, we are currently in the process of calculating our horizon year estimates, and the next steps of this process involves all of the above resources mentioned, and we will also need your all's help, which Chris is going to talk about now.
All right, so it's a lot of technical stuff, but we are going to lay a lot of the groundwork before we come to you. And when we do, I'm calling this forecast fine tuning. So we're going to be looking for local assistance, similar to the meetings that some of you might have participated in. Some of you might have participated in this the last time the MTP was updated. That was before my time, but I'm looking at this as similar to when we updated the smooth boundary and, so the functional classification. We're going to have some meetings on like a regional county level, but hopefully also with local jurisdictions in there as well. And, yeah, so I'll get to help describe this, and again, another end product beyond the traffic demand model is the MTP update, which, in case anyone hasn't heard, is gonna be called Moving Kentuckiana Forward 2050.
Let's make some news right here, right now.
Yes,
That is the name of our new MTP that we're gonna roll with.
yeah,
MKF 2050, if you will.
that's right. Okay, so to help illustrate what we have coming or what we're expecting. And there it is. So this is an example of what Spencer and Valerie came to some of you folks with last time. This is Fulton County, and this is a map of the household data with the base year 2019 and horizon year 2050. That hasn't changed. I'm not gonna get into why. Y'all can ask us if you're wondering why we're still using 2050. And so we'll have a color coded map similar to this. It's let's see. The maps are gonna be on a county level with the changes forecasted per TAZ. There'll be a separate map for household and a separate map for employment forecasts. And we'll have these prepared by KIPTA staff prior to each of the working meetings. The total amount of change forecasted will already have a maximum per county. We're gonna ask for assistance with any potential adjustments on the TAZ level. So if one TAZ looks a little high or under, we can fine tune it, but we would have to take away from another TAZ, if that makes sense. And that fine tuning, we're gonna do the best we can prior to the meetings, but we wanna have the local knowledge and land use planning to help assist where any adjustments might be needed or better. So these numbers are gonna be directly connected to KIPTA's traffic demand model again, so that's important. I have a timeline too. This is a super rough timeline, but as Darian mentioned, we're currently working on the data collection and analysis. I think we have all the data. We're just putting it together now. And we started probably back in November, December. Now we are going to be putting together our map creation, and those hopefully should be done by the end of May. And then we will be doing our collaborative working meetings where we're thinking in June of this year. And after that, then we would finish it up for the MTP. So more information is going to be coming soon. We're going to be approaching regional contacts to assist with setting aside meeting spaces and reservations. We'll be coming to you all. Each of the 5 counties, but hopefully we can have a place to host, and then we can invite other local jurisdictions as a benefit process.
Yeah, Andy, you made it sound really exciting. So are you getting MKF 2050 t-shirts made for these
I think we should. Well, one point in time, KIPTA got, even when we announced Connecting Kentuckiana, the first one, we had, I don't know if anybody in the room remembers that, we had billboards. I'm not kidding. Billboards. Not sure that was the best idea, but we had billboards. We couldn't afford the good the prime billboards. They were less prime billboards. So yeah, get the word out. Moving Kentuckiana forward.
Social media.
Yeah, well, okay, frankly, we need a new name because the horizon year is staying at 2050.
Okay.
And so, or we believe we need a new name. That's our thought, that it'd be confusing to not have a new name. If we're gonna keep the horizon year the same. And so, let's see, moving Kentuckiana forward, that was part of our, Brady, what was that? Part of our goals and objectives or sort of our mission statement or something in the.
Part of our branding vision, part of our vision from KIPTA.
What do we think? Do we like the name?
Brady came up with it.
I was getting the opinion first, and then I was gonna say that, yes.
I think we like it.
Yes, so we're connected, now let's move it forward, right?
We need to do that text poll or that online voting we were.
Right,
doing.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's on Friday.
Yeah, hopefully that acronym doesn't backfire, we couldn't think of anything that was too egregious. But, yeah, but this process that Chris and Darren have, I think it's I think it's one that local governments have taken a major role in over the past iterations of that, over the last several ones, because I've been part of the last several ones, so I can say that, I think, with the fact that we usually get good participation. But it is something that we will lean on y'all heavily, maybe as heavily for something like this as we do about anything else. That is, we don't know what the status of the Kentucky State Reformatory is and whether there's gonna be 1 million homes there instead of 1 million cells there. I don't know. Okay, but y'all got a better feel for it than I do, and then we do, and then KIPTA does. And so we want to make sure that that when we have that, we'll have a solution. We will have, to their point, we will have an answer, and it's gonna be on that map. But please don't take that answer and say, yeah, that's good. Please scrutinize that and scrutinize it heavily and tell us where we're wrong, and we will, we want that, we crave that, and so hopefully we'll get that. It has always been a more, let's call it a more manageable process in the 4 counties that aren't Jefferson County. So Jefferson County will be a challenge, not because of any other reason than there's like 600 or 700 TAZs in Jefferson County. So moving some employment from a TAZ to another in Oldham County where there's 60 TAZs or however many there are is a lot easier task, a lot more manageable task than moving it amongst 600 of those TAZs. So we'll get there. We'll get there. And it won't all be Mike's job. Mike looks excited. He looks excited right now. Yeah, there you go. But we do appreciate your help in the coming months, and hopefully it's an educational and even an enjoyable process for everybody to be part of.
So we'll look forward to the approximately June 2026 collaborative meetings.
Indeed.
As the next step for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brady, can you tell us about the planning studies call for applications? And great.
As just off of the presentation we just had, KIPTA often farms out some funding for planning studies within the region. In fiscal year 2025, we funded 3 separate projects, 2 in Indiana, 1 in Kentucky. The Ford County one you just heard the results of the completed Pale Lake Pike Sidewalk Master Plan. In fiscal year 26, we funded 2 projects: Louisville Metro's Freight Mobility Action Plan and Shepherdsville's Traffic Master Plan for Central Louisville County. Both of those projects are ongoing, not yet completed, but are anticipated to be complete by June 30th of this year. These PL funds come from KIPTA's budget from 4 particular sources. So we get PL funds from Kentucky. That $1.4 million number there is what's estimated for fiscal year 27. And we get a lesser amount for Indiana, so we have a lot less people in Indiana, proportionally, of the $258,000 number from Indiana. We also get some funds from the FTA, section 5303. $275,000 from Kentucky estimated for this upcoming fiscal year, and then $96,000 from Indiana estimated for fiscal year 27. And if you compile all those funds together into one pot, that helps us pay for a variety of things that KIPTA does in terms of our long range planning, developing MTP, developing the TIP, paying for streetlight subscriptions and traffic counting studies and a variety of things. Everything that we do basically to keep the lights on here at APO, these funds help pay for. What KIPTA has done historically, and we're proposing here, is to set aside a little portion of those funds to make available for planning studies in the region. So for this upcoming fiscal year, we're anticipating around 125,000 federal PL dollars to be available for
for studies, so not any kind of construction or implementation projects, but planning studies specifically. That $125,000 number could increase, or it could actually decrease depending on a few dominoes that have not yet fallen regarding KIPTA decisions to potentially utilize some other services to help our ongoing needs, or it could increase if we receive more money in carryover dollars than we are currently anticipating from a conservative estimate. Another aspect to know about these funds is they do require a local match, so whoever would be awarded such funds would be required to what I would anticipate, or what I would recommend our LPAs to anticipate is a 20% local match. That 20% number could also be a little less because the $1.44 million from Kentucky's PL funds of those four separate funding sources that I'm showing up here, that biggest number requires a 10% match, whereas the other three require a 20% match. So depending on how the numbers work out of how much funding is coming from which bucket depends on how much is going to be required for the match. Let's make it easy for your anticipation right now, just anticipate 20%. There is also a possibility that it could be more than 20% in that if it's it would be deemed best to fund two projects for $125,000 federal, that we could have fund two projects and they both match 25%. That's something that has been done before, this slight overmatch in order to do two instead of one. So, but like I said, anticipate 20% for your application. Anticipated timeline for the call for studies, announcing it right now, and April 1st will be the application opening date. You'll have the entire month of April to submit applications to KIPTA. KIPTA staff will analyze and select projects and present these awarded projects to the May TPC on May 28th. With the anticipation that we're able to hopefully get contracts in place to begin these planning studies by August 1st, if possible. Sooner the better. And the reason for that is because these studies need to be completed by the end of the fiscal year 27. So that's June 30th, 2027. When you get to April 1st and you want to submit an application, you can go to the same page as all the rest of KIPTA's applications, kiptatransportation.org/forms. So you can see we have our full project application, expedited application, same places you usually go. There'll be a fiscal year and it'll be updated to fiscal year 27 PL funding. You can click on that link and there'll be an opportunity for you to submit your application there. If anyone has any questions about that, feel free to ask them about it. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Any questions for Brady? Clear and concise, thank you. Well, next, Mick, we've got coordinated human services transportation plan revisions.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've been talking about the 2026 revisions to the coordinated plan. Start out, they're very minor revisions. But since it's been about a year and a half since we talked about the coordinated plan, I'll do a refresher real quick. It's a way for the communities to improve collaboration and communication across transportation providers. It is a locally developed process. An update's required at least every 5 years by the FTA for eligibility for Section 5310 funds. And those Section 5310 funds make federal resources available to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. So our last coordinated plan was adopted October 2024. The themes identified were performance, access, safety, and coordination. It included surveys completed by users and providers, and this plan covers all 9 KIPTA counties. A little bit about Section 5310 funding. Projects must serve seniors and/or individuals with disabilities. TARC allocates the funding for the Louisville urbanized area. Outside the urbanized area in Kentucky, it's awarded by the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Office of Transportation Delivery. Outside the urbanized area in Indiana, it's awarded by the NDOT Office of Transit. For the funding, capital costs cannot exceed the 80% federal share, so that'd be a 20% local match. For operational costs, it may not exceed a 50% federal share, so it'd be a 50% local match. So the revisions that we did, we removed any references to environmental justice, and that was to comply with the federal executive order. We added a TARC memo to Appendix C, describing the most recent awards of Section 5310 funding. That was in 2025, and that was over $1.4 million. So it's a good, significant impact in our community. And we also revised the TARC fares that became effective on March 2nd. And with that, if there's any questions.
I've got one. Can you differentiate the capital versus the operational?
Capital would be like buying a new van.
Okay.
Operational would be like buying gas. The capital expense is what most of the 1.4 million went into, because it's easier to make the match. I think the only operational that was done is TARC had a commuting program that they seek operational funding for. But all the others were capital expenses this year.
I just wanna be clear and I guess open it up for conversation if need be. I mean, the staff believe those updates that Mick mentioned were so minor that we aren't even seeking EPC action. If you all think we should, then we will. But it's just clerical changes and getting the executive order out there. We'd be happy to if you think so, but we don't think it's necessary, so in this case. So.
Any objection? I don't.
Okay, it's straightforward. There's nothing, it shouldn't be any controversial, just keeping us up to date and keeping some of those taboo words out of our literature. It candidly is kind of what we're doing, at least with one of those changes, and getting those other things, the freshened up, especially since something changed. What, last week, a couple weeks ago, the parish.
Very good, thank you. Next on the agenda, we've got the Bridges and Safety Infrastructure for Community Success Act. That's the Basics Act.
That's basics, nothing but the basics right here.
Many of you guys were at the previous TPC meeting where I did talk about this. I don't have a lot new that I'm gonna say, but I just want to make sure to capture this audience as well. So I'm gonna talk about the Basics Act. And at the end, I'll have a QR code if anyone wants to look into it a little further. So this act is the Bridges and Safety Infrastructure for Community Success Basics. And it has already been referred to House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. I believe that they are working on a companion to it for the Senate, but nothing yet. So it's a marker bill. Marker bills are not standalone bills. They are to signify collective interest in larger bills such as the upcoming Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill. The Basics Act is supported by a group called Local Officials in Transportation Coalition, which includes AMPO and NATO. KIPTA is a part of both of those organizations, and also some other organizations that I have listed here. Also, I have it in the slide, but in case anyone is not aware, the current Surface Transportation Reauthorization Bill will expire on September 30th, the end of the fiscal year this year. So we're going to be following that pretty closely. What is the Basics Act? It's designed to make targeted updates to existing federal transportation programs to strengthen safety bridges, improve accountability and speed delivery of local and regional projects. Okay, got some take-home points that I will go through. It's also notable that it is focused on formula funds and as opposed to discretionary funds. That's interesting, and it increases PL funding from the current 0.8% to 2.5%. It would eliminate the match requirement for MPOs, and we would be the direct recipients if we got it the way it was written.
So everybody knows, direct recipient, we're not one now because those dollars that Brady was talking about a moment ago pass through KYTC and NDOT before they make it their way here.
That's right. Okay, and so other key take-home points, it would be updating the existing bridge formula program. In that case, it would require the states to sub-allocate 25% based on population formulas, similar to how the STBG money is calculated, and it would not allow that 25% to be transferred. Also, with this, and I mean, these are questions that even we at KIPTA have. There's a piece where the states, it would get the distribution based on the current like need. So I'm not sure where Kentucky or Indiana would compare with the other states. So that is a question, but that is a part of the way that it is written up. Also, there would be changes to the HSIP program. Very similar to the bridge formula program changes. It would require the states to sub-allocate 25% based on population, and that 25% would not be allowed to be transferred. And of the remaining 75%, if the states would be required to run a competitive grant program before having the ability to transfer those funds to other transportation needs. And this is for more information. So the first one is a PowerPoint put out by the LOT and AMPO staff, if anyone wants to look into that. And then the QR code is the story map that I did send an email to the TPC. And so that's the same information there if you missed it the first time. And, yeah, we'll keep you all posted as we learn more. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them, but I think there'll be more to come.
Sure will. There's a lot to this. There's a lot that, I don't know, is it too good to be true on some of those things? No more match on PO dollars. Bumping PO dollars that, you know, that high, putting more funding at the TPC's table is in essence what it would be doing. We love that around these parts. But it, you know, the next reauthorization bill won't have exactly that. It's just a marker bill, as Chris said. So we'll be patiently awaiting what comes in. But some of these things are some fantastic things that would have a big impact on the planning side of things, including you know, the funding that we would presumably farm out in the future. We'd have a heck of a lot more, it sounds like, if this came to fruition. So definitely something we're following. Definitely something we're glad it's being added to the conversation. Yeah.
And I know that I think they're asking for a lot of other agencies or organizations for support. You listed 4 or 5 of them, so
That's right,
hopefully
yeah.
they continue to garner some more.
At least in these presentations that I've seen, they really are trying to make it clear that it's not taking away from the states.
That's right.
Like it would be more money for transportation for all levels of government. So, no, that's all I've got.
We'll look forward to more to come. Sure, there will be. Andy, any other business or other comments?
A couple things. I think first I want to recognize Vince Robinson and Tracy Lovell. Vince from Trimark and Tracy from KYTC District 5. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, and I see Claire Orler. So Claire from Kentucky DAQ. Hi, Claire. How are you?
Doing good.
Good to see you. Couple notes. I mentioned it last month. That our federal certification review is coming up, and that's a big deal for us here. That's the every 4 years review that we get as a that we and I don't mean just KIPTA staff, we as the folks that administer the metropolitan planning process in the Louisville area get every 4 years. Tanya Higdon from Federal Highways Kentucky will be coordinating that for federal highways. That meeting will be on May 6th and 7th, and Tanya sent us some information just this past week about some of the things that will most definitely be talked about. We will be in the meantime, or in the interim between now and then, Tanya and her colleagues and counterparts will be doing a desk review or desk audit, one of those words, I can't remember what it's called, but in other words, let's take a review of the Metropolitan, the MPO's planning products, our tips, our MTPs, our work programs, all that good stuff. And then, like I said, May 6th and May 7th. And kind of important to today's conversation, this will actually be our last TTCC meeting until then. So another note I want to make is that the April meetings, barring something very unforeseen, there will not be an April TTCC meeting, in part because there won't be an April Board of Directors or TPC meetings here at KIPTA. So in essence, April is you can call it a spring break from KIPTA. How about that? And so we will not. This group won't convene again until May 13th. May 13th, we'll have the preliminary findings from Tanya and her friends, and we'll be I'm sure we'll discuss them at that time. So Tanya, is there anything you'd like to say about the process? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're welcome to chime in here.
I think you pretty much covered it. There is going to be a public involvement element to it. We're going to try to use some social media with the help of KIPTA and try to outreach to everyone. It will be a hybrid scenario because we have some of our staff are going to be attending virtually from our federal review team. So we want to make sure that it's open and available to everybody. Thank you.
I would encourage the folks that are real active with KIPTA at the various agencies, those that are on the TTCC and otherwise that are real active to join us at both events. The meeting here that day, and then you're certainly welcome to join us at the public hearing that will be at the Arterburn. Arterburn is what used to be known as the St. Matthews Community Center. For those of you that know where 10 Pin Lanes is, it's the building that's right behind 10 Pin Lanes. So that's where we'll be hosting our public meeting, our public hearing on the night of the 6th. So most of the business will be all that full day. It'll be a nice long day here at KIPTA on May 6th. I'm sure of it. And then May 7th will be just a little bit of follow up. And so we look forward to it. We do hope that everybody will either join us or in spirit or in person. Hopefully in person for some of the agencies in the room. So because remember, it's not the process that it's not just the judgment of what the MPO staff's doing. It's really of the process in this region and how well the things are moving, all the moving parts are moving. And so we look forward to it. We'll be prepared for it. So busy couple months ahead of us.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. That concludes anything I had for other business.
I'm gonna mark my calendar for May 6th, see if there's anything else on it for you.
Please do.
Any other comments? Yes.
An update on the air pollution side of things. Moments after I finished my presentation at the TPC on air quality, we received an update from the Environmental Protection Agency regarding our request for application to remove reformulated gas from the fuel mix here in Jefferson County and in portions of Bullitt and Oldham. So they have approved that request, and that is going to be effective May 27th, and that there will be implications for conformity moving forward. So we will have more information as we go on and kind of understand and start to think about bringing the groups together. But update, you probably saw some of that in the local media and just wanted to share that update here in the group.
Well, everybody go fill up with cheaper gasoline. Not right now, but in 6 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever, sorry, about 10 weeks or whatever it is, late May, right?
Yes,
Late May. If they're honest brokers, the gas should go down a dime or a quarter or something like that.
So I sort of have a question. I think in the presentation, there was some discussion that air quality, standards are getting a little tighter and it's a little harder for us to meet those requirements. If I'm not mistaken, RFG was a tool used to keep air quality, you know, under the limits, so. Do we anticipate, I think that's what you're saying, there might be implications for conformity. Do you anticipate it affecting air quality?
I think from the conformity standpoint, it will change some of the inputs that we put into the moves modeling. And so that is where we'll need to do some updated modeling. From an air quality standpoint, the fuel standards on vehicles and vehicles themselves have improved so much since the request was put in for the reformulated gas, or the need for the reformulated gas in the area. So the gain that we were receiving from that reformulated gas was close to negligible, and we because of some changes to air emissions from LG&E, we kind of did a little bit of replacement for that little difference between the benefit that we received from reformulated gas. So related to what we talked about the last time, but separate actions from the EPA as well.
Yeah, the moves model craves fuel, among the inputs are fuel inputs, so the characteristics of the gasoline that be sold in the marketplace would be, that would be the change, just like we changed the projects that from an amendment that Chris brings to this body, and we put all those projects in the model. Well, downstream of that is the inputs of the moves model, which would include the fuel mixture that has small impacts.
Small, yeah. So I will keep you guys up to date as we.
Do you happen to know, if you don't know, that's perfectly okay, the status of any changes in Indiana? Have you heard any lately on that?
I have not heard anything. I've heard just that they are having conversations, but I don't know the outcome of that.
One of the issues, of course, is that when the fuel that gets sold in the Louisville or the Jefferson County portion of the Bullitt Oldham County market, when that fuel mixture changes, well, traditionally that's been the same gasoline that gets shipped to the fueling stations in Indiana, and there might be issues post May 26th with them doing so. In other words, the fuel requirements in Indiana are slightly different, and so remains to be seen what kind of dynamic that puts on the market, I guess, for fuel, I suppose.
Yeah, I'll follow up with them, and if I have anything to share by TPC, I'll bring that to share through.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No, a very informative meeting, not a lot of action items, but I'll add one to the end if we have a motion to adjourn. I'll take.
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?